But let me tell you something about my friend, and he's got a couple minutes with us. He's been working with the Bears, and I'll say this to you about Coach Wannstedt. Boy, I'll tell you something, man. The more and more I get removed from him, Butch, and Jimmy, these guys are the greatest talent evaluators I've ever seen. I mean, from Dave to Revis to Donald to even Butch in Tampa. I mean, Butch in North Carolina with all those. Butch turned North Carolina football around. All those guys they brought down to the Hurricanes, even when they were at Oklahoma State. I mean, they were turning Oklahoma State around. Best talent evaluators I've ever seen. And the new coordinator in Philadelphia is Sean Desai, who was in Chicago for a little bit. And let's go to our friend who works with the Bears and my former coach, Coach Wannstedt. He joins us now. Coach, I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much. How them Bears looking?
Anytime, Danny. Absolutely. You know what? I've been up there, several times, and I like what they're doing. And I'll tell you a couple of things what's happening. One is they are a young football team. When they got into free agency with Ryan Poles, I don't think they signed anybody that was older than 29 years old. So they kept the age parameter to be young. They had a good draft last year, a good draft this year, and they've created a very competitive football team. And I think we saw that in the first preseason game. There's everybody talks about, oh, you got to earn your spot every year. Well, it's kind of that way with the Bears. I mean, they started ground zero. They got rid of the Akeem Hickses and the Khalil Macks and Danny Trevathans, and they completely turned the thing over, went youth draft, and then free agency were young guys. And there's no guys. It reminds me a little bit of the old college practices we used to have at the U. I mean, there's nobody sitting on helmets. This is not your old NFL camp. Guys take a drill, sit on a helmet, BS. No, these guys are running drill to drill. The coaches are hustling drill to drill. And I think they're going to be a little bit better than what people think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, 7 wins. I could see them win 7, 8 games. The first game, the opener against Green Bay, is going to be critical, I think, just from a confidence standpoint for both teams, really. But I like where they're at right now. I truly do.
How about this, too, Coach, especially in the NFC where it's not the power conference that the AFC is with all those good teams. You never know with the war of attrition there. But, one last thing on the Bears. This all comes down to Justin Fields. I watched him, Coach. I mean, there were mixed reviews. I mean, a lot of checkdowns, a lot of dump downs. Are they trying to do things to develop him that say Shane Steichen did when he was the coordinator in Philly with Jalen Hurts and putting a lot of those RPOs in to try to install that kind of offense? Or do they want to have him more of a drop back guy? Talk about his development a little bit here.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever going to be, quote, a drop back offensive attacking. I think it's going to be a lot like Philly, Danny. Philly added, the big receiver. The Bears added DJ Moore, in a trade. So they've got a big-time receiver now. The difference between the two teams, my 2 points here, is Philly's defense, as we know, their team that, led the NFL in sacks, and they came up with turnovers. A great defense, we both know this, we lived it. That really helps an offense. And it helps a quarterback field position. You're not taking the negative plays. You're flipping the field. You're coming up with turnovers, momentum of the game. Where the Bears last year were one of the worst defenses in the league. I mean, their leading sacker was their strong safety, Brisker, a rookie from Penn State. So the Bears' defense didn't help their offense. Now, in the first preseason game, everybody was talking here in Chicago. They threw high percentage passes. And I said to them, if you're the head coach of the Bears, and I know what I would do, I would turn to my offensive coordinator and I would say, listen, I do not want to get Justin Fields hit in the mouth on the first play. I don't want to give up a sack I want a positive play. DJ Moore is our best damn receiver. Throw the ball to him, okay? And if he makes 5 yards, it'll be a positive play. And they throw him a little hit screen. He goes 62 yards for a touchdown. I'm sure that wasn't the plan, but The point was that by having a positive play or two early, it gives confidence to the offensive line. It gives confidence to the quarterback. The fans said, you know what, we're making some progress. So I think the Bears went about it the right way. I really do.
Absolutely. Coach, tell me who Sean Desai is, the new coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, he had some limited experience as the DC up in Chicago a couple of years back with Matt Nagy, and I think he was there with Vic Fangio, if I'm not mistaken. Who is this? Who is he? And tell me, just give me your overall assessment of him.
Well, I think the last name reference you used is what would be used to describe Sean. Vic Fangio. He was with Vic out at Denver when Vic came to Chicago. He brought Sean with him, and I think that's the mentality that he has, which is a very sound package. We know that. To me, all these coordinators, I always put them in two categories. Are they playbook coordinators, or are they outside the box thinkers? And you can get a coordinator and give them Vic Fangio's playbook, or you can give them our playbook that we had at Dallas. And this guy could study our playbook in and out. And he'd say, I got this playbook done as good as you do. Great. Okay, now the second play of the game, they're running a play that we haven't worked on. They're running a counter a week. We thought strong, whatever it might be. Now, what are we going to tell the defensive lineman? And what are we going to tell the lineman? How are we going to adjust within our package? So I think there's two different categories of coordinators. I know that he knows the defense, but I think the telltale will be as they get into the season, and you got to make adjustments at halftime, and you got to make adjustments week to week and during the game. To me, that kind of separates guys a little bit.
Coach, when I look at today's defense compared to you, when you believed in your front four guys getting home, and that allowed you to play a little bit more back in the secondary, and you could gamble a little bit more or not, depending on what you wanted to do and the personnel you were playing. Today, Coach, is it me? Keep everything underneath. Most of the personnel that we're playing against, especially for a good team, they're not going to be able to go 14 plays on us. Am I right, Coach? It's more like don't give up the plus 25, keep everything underneath. And they're not really – you don't have to be a superstar dominating defense any longer, and you're not going to be because of the salary cap. Am I right when I'm seeing that, Coach? Or, again, do you still have to have that dominant defense to win a Super Bowl?
And you know this because you've heard me say it. I mean, I've always believed that anytime the quarterback drops back, if he's not fearful in the back of his mind that he's going to get hit in the mouth, then I never thought you could play real great defense. And now with the rule changes and in protecting the quarterback, I think the ball's coming out so quick now, Dan, so quick that, these coverages and they're huddling at the line and the ball's coming out. It's hurry, hurry, hurry. You don't have a whole lot of time to get lined up and press guys and get into your banjo rules and all the stuff that we used to do. So I think, there is a lot of them that are just lining up and kind of keeping it in front of them and create some pressure and hope that your coverage guys are better than their receivers.
Coach, when I look at the defensive tackles that the Eagles have the last 2 years, and I see a guy like Jordan Davis versus Jalen Carter, I see Jerome Brown and Jalen Carter because of the foot movement, the hands, and all this, and I see the production. I keep trying to tell Philly people, Vince Wilfork was a first and second down defensive tackle. He's not a 3-down D tackle. They're going to pull him off the field on third down. He's the 13th pick. Now, don't over assume he's going to be a productive guy. And, Coach, the one thing I learned from you and Jimmy and Butch, you love defensive tackles that were productive and had production. You did not like guys who ran 4.78s, had no production, and didn't do anything. You had to produce. Jimmy used to always tell me this, I like guys around the ball. I like guys that are always going to be around the ball making plays. So my point is with Jordan Davis, I think the people in Philly are overestimating. He had 9 sacks in 43 games. He's not going to be anything more than what he is. I mean, Vince Wilfork's a great player, Coach. He's going to be considered for the Hall of Fame. I mean, just because you're not – Villa in Tampa is a good football player. But, I mean, for you to assume he's going to be all of a sudden a 10-sack guy when he never was, I think it's crazy. How did you look at recruiting tackles like Aaron Donald?
Yeah, I think that a lot has to do with how you play those guys. And I would, if the Bears, the Bears are kind of a combination of what we did at Dallas and Miami and what Tony Dungy did at Tampa, which is really the same thing. I mean, you did the
Yeah.
exact same thing Warren Sapp did. I mean,
Yeah.
they turn you loose, and the Bears are trying to get to that. But I think there's a lot of 4-3 schemes. Just because you're a 4-3 team does not mean that you're not. Some people line up in a 4-3 and they're grabbing those tackles and squeezing them and not letting them off. And, so it's a philosophy on what you want to do with your defensive linemen. And, I'm
Coach,
not
you
sure.
believed in TFLs and penetration and getting up in the
Oh,
three
yeah.
and knocking things off. You didn't believe in the two-gap philosophy because you
No.
thought that ended up moving them back into the linebackers and the scrape lanes were off.
Yeah. And we thought we could play with a little bit smaller player too. If we were turning them loose, if we wanted to line, Aaron Donald head up you line him head up on one of these 350-pound guards, it's going to be a tough day on him. But you put him on that inside or outside shoulder, and it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So I think that has a lot to do with it, and that was our philosophy with. You had good size, but you weren't 6'5". Jerome wasn't 6'5".
No, you used to come to the huddle all the time going, holy cow, I could eat a bowl of soup off you two guys' heads.
Well, I mean, really, and Donald was the same way.
Yeah.
And Russell Maryland was the same way. I mean, none of those guys were 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", but they all had quickness and they could all make plays. And you're giving up a little bit when you play that scheme. The guard offensive linemen are going to get up on your linebackers, and your linebackers are going to get upset. And, there's a trade-off there. So it's a constant kind of give and take depending on the scheme that you're playing defensively.
Two last questions for you, Coach. When you're looking for a defensive tackle, what's the number one thing that when you were recruiting or when you were in the process of drafting someone, what did you want your D tackles to do and be like? I mean, is there a formula that you looked at?
Well, I think number one, we always talked about the first step. I never thought that we ever had a great one, or you could be a great one if you didn't have a good first step. By that, I mean, when the ball moves instinctively, you're moving. And the second thing was leverage. I mean, did you have to stand up right away, whether it was a run or a pass, to get into your technique, or could you play that by moving to the football? So those were things that we always talked about: leverage, first step. If the guy had those two things, and he was halfway crazy, then we liked him,
But hey, Butch did this. We were playing Florida State, and I'm killing everything off the line. My opinion, I was the fastest guy off the line with Stubbs and all them guys. And he's stopping him. Drum looked over at me. He goes like this, and I go, I don't know, man. And Butch looked over, and he goes like this. That's exactly what we want here, because we used to do that gap crash.
Yep.
And we would come down with that gap crash, and Jerome and I would do that. That first step, Coach, and you could see it with Jalen Carter versus some other guys with like Aaron Donald. I mean, I said this like what you just said about Donald. You put Donald on a head up versus a 375-pound guy, that could be problems for him. You put him on a 3 technique on a shade,
Yep.
He's going to be a problem for you all day long. I mean, he surely is. Coach, thank you so much for doing this.
Anytime, Danny. You do a great job.
Thank you so much, my friend. That is my coach.
See you,
That
buddy.
is my coach, Dave Wannstedt. Man, do I love that guy. Working with the Bears, too. I saw Justin Fields a little bit, too. I thought he improved a little bit. See, right there, did you hear him, Tone? The difference between Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter is in the first step. You don't need to look around and go. Now, to Tone's question earlier, how long does it take to develop? Some guys, it may drag on a little bit, like a Brandon Graham. But if you have that first step, you have so much to work with. Versus a guy, like when I watch like this Mozzie Smith, I don't think he has a good first step. I think he's slow. And I think some of that has to do with I think some of that has to do with being in shape. He's just not in shape. Lazy Smith, Quan, that's what it kind of looks like to me. He'll have one gigantic play, and you go like this, wow, this guy's got some power. Well, I don't think anyone's not under the notion that he's not a strong kid. My question is, can he play 60 plays? And can he run up and down the line of scrimmage? And can I get some pass rushing out of you? The answer to me right now with Mozzie Smith in Dallas is no. Now, Jalen Carter, how many plays do you think? Hey, if I were me, how many plays do I think Jalen Carter could go? Say you're going to play 65 plays in a defensive sequence in a game, 4 quarters, 63 plays. I would not want to play him more than 45, somewhere in 45 in a rotation, 45, like that. I'd want him to have, if it were me, I'd want to have 45 plays for him. 45 plays for him. Shit, I'd want about 32 plays for Fletcher. I'd want Jordan at the one technique. I'd want him to play 40. And I'd want to have Milton Williams pick up the rest of it. Okay? So how many plays, we're talking about 17 plays. That's 34. Shit, 3-man rotation, you're covered right there. 45, 34 for Fletcher. And if Fletcher gets nicked up or anyone gets nicked up, you have Milton Williams picking up 10, 15 snaps. That's my rotation. That's how I would do it. Out of 62, 65 plays, I want to see – but see, I don't want to put Jordan at the 3 technique. He's not a 3. He's limited. So you got to keep him in there. And if anything happens to Jordan, that means Fletcher has to turn over and go over to the other side. And Fletcher's more of a 3 technique. Okay? I think he's more of a 3 technique. So, hey, first step. So from now on, when you guys are watching, don't tell me what kind of shape he's in. Now, that matters. That matters. Hey, Chuck, 25 plays, 25 to 28 plays for Fletcher. You're going to get 6 sacks from him. You're going to get a 6-sack year from him if you keep him between 25 and 28 plays. And if you get 45, you got to get 45 plays a game, I think, out of Jalen. Okay? You got to get 40 plays at least out of Jordan Davis. And folks, watch this. If you do this, 45 Jalen Carter, 44 Jordan Davis, 25 plays for Fletcher, and Milton picks it up, you're going to have a good group. That's going to be a good group. But you're going to look over at Jordan and go, he's got 3 sacks. He's got 22 tackles. That's not what I'm looking at. Did he make everybody else better around him? That's his value. That's a nose guard's value. A nose guard's value is like a point guard. Like if Jalen Carter has 9 sacks, it's going to be because Jordan Davis. And the guy behind him, your Schwimp, might actually get to 100 tackles. He might actually get to 100. We're going to look at the NFL at the top. By the way, I just got a text. Josh Sweat and Jalen Carter killed it today against the Browns. Great news. Great news. This kid, Jalen Carter, is going to be something else, man. Okay? Personally, I think he may finish the job that Jerome started. He's a good-looking football player, man. You watch that first step, dog, he is at you. He gets in your ass right away, man. Ba-bang. Gets some hands over, under. Gives you a one-hand power rush, cross hand chop, spin, twist. He does all that shit in there, man. He's well coached. He's a good-looking player. Okay? Really good-looking, man. Man, Josh Sweat is continuing to be an important player in that entire rotation. Hey, don't forget, football season, baby. The official home of the National Football Show is Hooters. Hooters KOP and the 7 locations in the Northeast area. One's nearest you. Do me a favor, go to northeasthooters.com to find that location nearest you, and you'll understand why. 40th year anniversary with the iconic Hooter girls serving you during the fall football season and exhibition football. Draft parties, everything you're going to want to have, not only just draft parties, but your fantasy draft parties. This is where you're going to want to be. Watch your favorite football on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, the official home of all Eagle fans. How about on Tuesdays? You buy 10 wings, right? You get 10 boneless free. Wings Wednesdays, one of the great 40-year anniversaries. Great staples. Had this thing for 40 years, 1983. Kids eat on free, or eat for free, I should say, on Saturdays. Look, northeasthooters.com is the place you go to find one of the 7 locations. $6, 6 items, fried pickles, the steamers, everything is great for you. Once again, northeasthooters.com. And when you go to Hooters, tell them Big Sil sent you.